personally, I'm coming on camera. I don't want to leave this to, an anonymous source. And I really encourage anyone that has anything to say about all this to do so publicly, because to not is not doing service to what this information really means. Again, I don't know Aaron now, but I know that what he's been sort of portrayed or reported as from other people's accountings have not been really great at all. You kind of talk about how he speaks about, beat down budgets and stuff like that.
Each beat down has a goal of $50,000, but they have stretch goals that go up to 200,000.
Greed.
And something, even at the time that I knew him during the City of Scars days, he would talk a lot about how City of Scars costed around $30,000, I think was the number. $30,000 or $40,000 was the number that he kept throwing out there. I know for a fact that it didn't cost that much, because he would actually tell us, the numbers that it did cost, and it was sort of a fraction of that.
Got him.
Aaron has that certain level of confidence that comes from not being challenged. And I think that when someone like that has someone close to them that challenges them, they either grow from it or they distance themselves from it. And I think that I was just a voice that tried to hold Aaron accountable as a friend, as a brother. Eventually, it just led to him not really wanting to hear from me anymore. And
another day, another friend, dare I say victim of Aaron Schoenke, comes forward to make sure his story is not just swept under the rug. So far, I've interviewed the original Joker, played by Paul Monar, the original Harley Quinn, played by Madeline Ray. I've obtained statements from Kevin Porter, who was regarded as the world's best Batman, Tatiana Neva, who played several roles for Batman's son. Overall, they have one thing in common outside of working with Aaron Schoenke, is they likely will never work with him again in any capacity. This interview is about Aaron's former assistant director, Chase Langley. You're all going to learn that at one point in Chase's life, he looked up to Aaron because he met Aaron when he was still passionate about filmmaking. He met Aaron fresh off Aaron releasing Batman Beyond Year One, but now Chase has surpassed Aaron in the filmmaking industry, and I will let Chase tell his story. Chase Langley, who is known for working on Prey, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and The George, according to your IMDb. But you have a history with Aaron Schoenke.
Yeah, I actually have a history with the whole Bat and the Sun team. When I first met Aaron, I was a very young guy. I was probably about 16. This was back in 2006, 2007. Found out we both kind of grew up in the same area. Really loved what they were doing with the Batman fan films. I think at the time he had done Batman Beyond Year One and Batman Dark Justice, and then Patient J, of course, which Paul Molnar stars in. And I reached out and just told him, hey, I'm really passionate about filmmaking, really interested in, helping out if I can, doing anything I can to start getting my hands dirty, learning the ropes. Aaron was very gracious, to be honest. He was very gracious to meet up with me. We met at like a Burger King, and we talked for a few hours, and he told me a lot about how he sort of approached filmmaking, especially with like a scrappy crew. He kind of took me under his wing at that point, and by the summer of 2008, I was going to Comic-Con with that whole group of people. That's where I met Paul Molnar for the first time. Even just that whole trip, that's whenever they were shooting City of Scars. I got involved with that and went on to become assistant director of City of Scars. And at the time, I really looked up to Aaron. He was like a brother figure to me, like an older brother who, like I said, really took me under his wing, showed me a lot about what filmmaking is, how to do it on a budget, sort of like the illusions that you can do to make stuff feel or happen a certain way. I have so many great memories from that time, meeting Rachel, meeting Kevin, Porter, and hanging out with all of those guys, Aaron's dad, Sean, really some really amazing memories. And we all were doing it for the passion of it. We all loved the character. We all loved hanging out together. We all loved being creative. I think that work really shows and speaks for itself as far as, what we accomplished together. And of course, Damien, oh my gosh, Damien, just like the sweetest man you'll ever meet. Him and Kevin, I think, are like neck and neck for sort of like some of the best role models out there. And I looked up to all those guys, so much. And they all really taught me how to be a man almost as I was, growing into my adulthood. And yeah, like, looking back, I really just adored that time. I haven't worked with Aaron or really even seen or hung out with him in almost 12 years now. That said, we've kept sort of a distant relationship as far as friendships go. We touch base every once in a while, or have touched base every once in a while. I wasn't involved in any of the Legend of the White Dragon stuff. Obviously, as of recent times, a lot of stuff has been coming to light
Yeah,
And
which
I really wanted to speak to you about sort of like what my experiences have been, what I've noticed throughout that time. I'm not here to sort of push things one way or the other. I'm really here to just kind of give my experience, give the truth as I saw it, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Really.
I like that Chase pointed out that he hasn't spoken to Aaron in 12 years because I was told since Aaron found out I interviewed Chase about a week ago when he called Chase within minutes, literally minutes of Madeline Ray's interview going live. Make no mistake, Aaron was not reaching out to Chase because he wanted to catch up with him. Aaron likely reached out because he's trying to figure out who is communicating with me and what is being communicated. So all those people Aaron is reaching out to that he hasn't reached out to in years, do you think he really cares about you, or he just wants you not to talk to me? With that in mind, you talk about all these great memories that you've had with Aaron and being a part of the Bat and the Son family in the earlier years with like Paul and Damien. What brings you to come forward now? What propelled you? What's your story? Why haven't you spoken in 12 years?
Right. Yeah. So I would say back then, Aaron was a very ambitious guy. He had a lot of gusto. He really had a lot of confidence, and that sometimes would err into the side of arrogance, and I'm not necessarily coming forth with some groundbreaking story and anything like that, but I do want to speak to certain things that have been kind of, like I said, coming to light. Aaron back in the day was very strongly opinionated about how good the Bat and the Sun content was. And I can attest, like, we made some really great stuff, but he took it to sort of the level of competing with other creators and putting other creators down. And something in particular that comes to mind at the time was that there was another fan film creator who sort of took to the forefront of his own work and was the Joker in his content. And that was something that I think even Damien spoke on, that Aaron sort of scoffed at the idea that someone would try and put themselves front and center and as well as behind the camera. And so now we're sort of seeing, a full circle moment with that sort of a thing play out, unfortunately.
I'm not going to name names, but there was a specific Batman filmmaker around the same time when we started in 2005, 2006, who was touting making a film in a week or less.
Oh, wow.
And they were decent, but it looked like he made them in a week or less. So they could have been better. And the reason they were the way they were, it was he was the writer, the director, the cameraman, sound, actor. He was doing literally everything, and it was burning him out, and it was showing in his work. So I sat down with Aaron and I said, this is what we're never going to do. We're never going to be the every hat. Everybody's going to have a job. We will share responsibilities, but we're not going to be on camera if we're behind the camera. We're not going to be, basically just setting down ground rules for success.
Aaron has the talent that he does, and he creates stuff that he does. But I think, you've touched on it, Henry, where there's been a bit of a plateauing with how far he pushes stuff. And I think that really comes with the cycling of people that he's been putting, together to create projects with. I know that at this point, there's almost no original Bat and the Sun collaborators that are still working with him. I do know that there are a few, but not many at all.
Yeah, it seems like the core Bat and the Sun team is no more. And it's now just, for lack of a better word, the replacements, if you will.
A lot of the people that Aaron worked with, I don't know Aaron now, but I know that what he's been sort of portrayed or reported as from other people's accountings have not been really great at all. Some of the people that he works with, I do know, and there's so many great people that he collaborates with. And I think that's the hard part in all of this that I personally struggle with, which is seeing sort of this one guy's reputation kind of damning a whole project, let's say, because, I never knew Jason David Frank, for instance, but I've heard wonderful things about who that guy was. And then I've heard a lot of, my old fellow collaborators and a lot of people on this project who are good people, who are very talented people, but are ultimately kind of stuck in this project that hasn't really come into fruition yet. And so I think with all of the hearsay and all of the sort of people not coming to light and not sort of putting a face to their words, it's causing a lot of issues that I think are going to ultimately damage the project. It's also putting it on this pedestal that potentially could never live up to as far as what fans are hoping for it to be. So I just want to be very clear, at least for my take, that things that I'm going to speak to, the things I'm speaking to are not, reflective of that group of people or the work that they do, but more so sort of the situation that Aaron finds himself in now.
Legend of the White Dragon may end Aaron's career. I can see those being a part of it, removing it from their resume. As a JDF fan, I hope it comes out well, but I was told by people that's in it, to put it nicely, it's not going to be reviewed well. Legend of the White Dragon's release will likely solidify why no big studios will give Aaron a penny to make any content.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, so let's jump into it. How did you find yourself not collaborating with Aaron anymore? How was that? How you go from assistant director on City of Scars to, hey, we haven't spoken in 12 years.
Right. Yeah. So, I think the last project that I really worked on Aaron with, we worked on City of Scars together. We worked on another fan film called Seeds of Arkham. And then from there, that's right when they were starting the beatdowns. And at the time I was going to school for visual effects. I was kind of coming in and out of different beatdown sets. And I think there was this one Nightwing versus Gambit where Aaron was playing Nightwing. I was behind the camera for a lot of that. And I had just gotten this lens that was like a pretty nice lens. It had a really good depth of field to it. But unfortunately, there's this setting called an auto stabilization setting. That's what it is. I wasn't aware of it. Aaron wasn't aware of it. And so when we were filming, a lot of that footage came out pretty jittery. I think that really burned Aaron because some of the footage I think was really hard to work with. And I think I was sort of distanced a little bit from working on that aspect. What I'm about to get into is something that is hard to pinpoint. I'm not putting it on Aaron per se, because I don't know how much, if at all, he had a hand in it. At the time, this is probably 2013, I was working on my own fan film, and it was a Power Rangers fan film, actually, that I had titled Mighty. A lot of this fan film sort of took place half in like a convenience store, and then it would go out into this like back alley sort of like reveal to be a Power Rangers type fan film. And the alley location that I was shooting at, I had traded work for work with a gentleman by the name of Joey Rasul. And Joey's worked with Aaron as a cinematographer. And he had worked at this place. He had access to this location. And I traded my visual effects services for 2 nights of shooting. I got through the first night. Great. It was a struggle to learn how to shoot in that setup, but we were really feeling good. And we felt like, okay, as soon as we get that second day, we're going to be able to wrap up and move into editing, move into post-production. Kept trying to nail down a date to shoot. And I found out that, hey, that location isn't available anymore for you to shoot in. I don't work there anymore. I don't have access to it anymore. I said, okay, that's fine. It sucks because we already did the work for work. If that's the way the cookie crumbles, that's how it goes, Come to find out, I think it was only weeks, maybe a month or two later, Aaron reaches out, he's like, hey man, we're shooting a beatdown. It's a really special one. You should come to set. And I was like, awesome, man, great. Where's it at? He shoots me the details. I realized that it is the location that I was going to be shooting my Power Rangers fan film at to wrap filming on. So I thought, man, that's really strange. I know that he's connected to Joey. I know that we've filmed a lot of stuff there before. So I show up on set kind of just expecting a beatdown, but not knowing what to expect. And sure enough, it was the Scorpion versus White Power Ranger short that Joey was also shooting on that night. And I just remember feeling like this knot in the pit of my stomach. And I'm not one to make a scene, so I didn't sort of confront anyone. I didn't make a big deal, but as soon as I got to set, I just, felt this knot in my stomach, and I just had to leave. So I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't make a big deal. I just sort of slipped out the back door and went home. But I remember feeling like, man, this
he took your location.
Why was, I'm not saying that Aaron took my location. I know Aaron has shot there before. I know Joey's shot there before, but I think that the thing that really threw me off and the thing that was really telling to me is that sort of all lines of communication kind of broke down from there. I was not really invited back on set again after that. And it was one of those things where we never were able to finish that Power Ranger short film. And I'll drop you a few like screenshots. I'll get them up and shoot them your way. But it was going to be something really cool. And it was something I was really excited for. And, Joey didn't know that I was shooting a Power Rangers fan film until we came to film that first night. So again, and I don't even want to say that Joey necessarily has said that he, sabotaged it or anything like that. I'm just saying these were sort of the events that played out. And basically from that point on, I was never invited back on set again.
You don't have to say it. I will say it for you. That seems like some, how dare you start a Power Ranger fan film? And look, I could be 100% wrong. He maybe didn't want you to go out on his own. Now, I don't know. For you to say, oh yeah, I'm filming here. I got this Power Ranger fan film. Joey knows. And then lo and behold, Joey says, hey, you can't come back on set anymore. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, come on set. And it's your location. Chase was being way too nice about it. Like Paul Monar said,
If walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck.
if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, looked like a duck, then it must be Aaron Schoenke. I was told Joey Rasul has some blind loyalty to Aaron, so I didn't reach out to him. But make no mistake, I believe that Joey told Aaron, or somehow Aaron found out about Chase doing his own fan film and had Joey put a stop to making sure Chase did not get to finish his film, more or less. I mean, look, I could be completely wrong, but this story is way too coincidental. Aaron strikes me as the guy who probably didn't want to lose Chase like he didn't want to lose so many other people. So ensuring he doesn't finish his film is a great way to ensure that Chase stays under his guidance. Sad story, but true. But you know, how many people's careers have Aaron kept for his own personal gain and exploit?
It was something that felt very heartbreaking at the time. You know, I'm no stranger. This whole industry is sort of full of people that, and not even necessarily people, but sort of instances, projects that play out in this sort of way, where whether it's ego, whether it's availability, whether it's just, you know, I think James Cameron has a great quote where, you know, he says, opportunity, you know, will crack the door that much for you, and you just have to be the one to pull it open. So sometimes the door snaps shut before you can pull it open, and other times, you know, you're able to push on through to the next round. But that was really where it broke down. You know, like I said, I've been in touch with Aaron over the years, here and there. We've had sort of surface level interactions. And I'll be honest, Henry, you know, the first time I ever saw a video of yours, it was just a month or two ago when I think a bunch of the Legend of the White Dragon footage leaked. I was like, oh shit, you know, like I know that this is something that all those guys over there have been working their asses off on. And I reached out to Aaron. I was like, hey man, I don't know if you want to like cease and desist this, but you know, this is the kind of leak that could really hurt, you know, the value of whatever you're doing. So you know, you might want to get this like off the internet. And lo and behold, you know, he just said, hey, thanks, and didn't say much more after that. But
I remember when the original Legend of the White Dragon clip leaked, the original uploader of the channel posted the clip, then it was deleted hours later, only for the original uploader to re-upload the video. And according to my sources, that is the sizzle clip that was shown to Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu, who also decided not to purchase the movie at that point. Now, I understand Aaron is telling everyone how he's about to take it out to distributors, but I'm telling you, it's 100% not going to be on Netflix. I don't know what story he's going to come up with to say, oh, well, they lowballed us or whatever. It was a better opportunity, whatever direction it chooses to go. But I'm telling you, Netflix is not buying it.
That put you on my radar. And then I started seeing more of your videos coming up. And I was like, oh man, you know, just hearing people like person after person coming out. And, you know, over the years, I think that I've seen behavior from Aaron, even at the time. He is the kind of guy, again, at the time that I knew him, to really overvalue things like masculinity, like super physical adeptness. Like he really idolized Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like he would constantly be quoting pumping iron and stuff like that. And I think he really put that sort of thing on a pedestal himself.
To my face, I was told I was fat.
You kind of talk about how he speaks about, you know, beat down budgets and stuff like that.
You know, each beatdown has a goal of $50,000, but they have stretch goals that go up to $200,000.
And something, even at the time that I knew him during the City of Scars days, he would talk a lot about how City of Scars costed around $30,000, I think was the number. $30,000 or $40,000 was the number that he kept throwing out there. I know for a fact that it didn't cost that much, because he would actually tell us, you know, the numbers that it did cost, and it was sort of a fraction of that. I don't know the exact numbers at the time, but what he had told me, because I had kind of confronted him about this, like, hey man, you know, because we were very open. Like I said, he really was like an older brother to me at the time. So I'd kind of like ask him this. It's like, hey, maybe there's something I don't know. Why are you telling people that these things, you know, that this fan film costs this much? And he said, well, first of all, when we're going out to get budgets on our next projects, we need people to feel like we're able to handle that level of money when it comes to a budget. We need people to see like this is what we can do with that level of money.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Lying about the amount the budget was for Aaron is the equivalent of lying on your resume, which makes sense because Aaron was finally given millions to make Legend of the White Dragon. And look how that's turned out, JDF's passing aside, which unfortunately, ultimately proves, in my opinion, that Aaron cannot handle a big budget.
Originally, I wanted to do 250,000, but Aaron wanted more. Greed.
I wonder if there are any legal avenues Chris J can pursue if he invested in this film on the false pretenses that Aaron handled larger budget projects before, with City of Scars being one of them. I mean, even if Chris J would have just literally talked to anyone from Valiant, they would have known what a train wreck Aaron was at being a director.
He's not that talented. And so for me, don't work with Aaron, dude. He's a f***ing hack. I worked with you and Aaron. He's a f***ing hack, dude.
That's so crazy, the reputation, though. Like, I heard that from Kyle, I heard that from Lionsgate.
And so I said, okay, that kind of makes sense to me. You don't want to go out there and try and get a budget for something if you've only ever made something for peanuts. However, the other thing he said to me is, when I say those numbers, what I'm doing is I'm also, valuating, or is that the word, value? Yeah, like putting a dollar amount to all the work that people do for free in these things. And
Aaron is the king of getting people to work for free, but think about it. If Aaron allegedly said a project like City of Scars cost $27,000 but only paid out $5,000, then he squeezed $22,000 of free work from the crew in exchange for exposure. Damien, who created the Superpower Beatdown name, also gave a similar statement about the budget being manipulated.
It was about how Aaron would lie, and I think you mentioned this too, how Aaron would lie about the various amounts for the panels. But we were sitting in a panel and someone asked what the budget was for Wolverine versus Predator. Oh yeah, we spent blah, blah. And Aaron like kicks me under the table and he's like, no man, we don't want to talk about the amounts of money. And I was like, all right, that's fine. So we talked about it later. And I 100% agree with this. If we were to walk into a movie studio and they say, how much have you made your episodes for? And I go, $5,000. They're going to go, all right, here's $5,000. And it's going to look like nothing's going to change. But if we walk in and we say our Hollywood level nerd episodes that we killed ourselves on and spent this much money on, we're going to say we spent $20,000, $30,000 on these episodes. Why? Because then that studio is going to come after us and go, we want to make that. How much? And we'll say, give us 60, 70,000.
Holy shit.
No. And I'm not saying Aaron used that exact amount. I'm saying it is a brilliant idea. It's for when you as a podcaster are approached by a news agency to say, hey, we want you to be a correspondent on our show. How much are your episodes? You are not going to say, I do them for free in my back room. You're going to say, I have a production value. I have an office. I have assistants, and you're going to make shit up to make yourself look better. And if you don't, you're stupid.
If Aaron wants to lie to movie studios that will likely never work with him again, I really don't care about that one bit. As I said before, the problem I have is if he is telling these same exaggerated budgets to fans in hopes they fund his beatdowns. Because since it's highly unlikely that any studio will give Aaron any money to produce a project, I would argue his main source of income for the foreseeable future is going to be Kickstarters and YouTube ad revenue. There was also that person who sent me an anonymous email that said a combination of what Chase and Damien said, which highlighted that Aaron inflates budget to make himself seem like he is big in the industry, but ultimately it undermines the free and discounted work for the people that worked for him. Ultimately, he boasts about these larger budgets just to serve his ego, to make it seem like, he's bigger than he is. But I am happy to announce that person that sent that email has agreed to do an interview also. But let's get back to Chase's story.
And at the time, I was kind of blown away because, all of us were more than happy to be working for free. More than happy. We were, it was hanging out with some of your best friends, making cool shit, But when he would go out there and then sort of flout these numbers of how much things would cost, it really kind of stung, because it really devalues all of that donated time and effort that all of these people are putting in And I remember sort of having this pushback with him back and forth. And it was just sort of landing on, well, the idea is that when we do get a budget, we want people to know how much things cost so that we can pay those people.
That's just lip service because Aaron's YouTube channel was making money and he had Loot Crate sponsorships along with Machinima fitting some of the bill. I couldn't imagine they didn't. And he was still asking people to work for free or low wages. Like when I say low wages, I'm talking like $100 to $150 a day. And from what I told, those days were not 8 hours. Okay. So some of these people were actually probably making less than $10 an hour, I would imagine.
At the time, I think that was something that I could understand, but it really did, I think, speak to some of those things where it's like, well, why is he inflating these numbers, or why are these numbers so fluid?
Each beatdown has a goal of $50,000, but they have stretch goals that go up to $200,000.
So yeah, it's something that didn't sit right with me at the time, but I think that maybe gives you a little bit more context on that as well too.
I'll tell you this, you are the second person on film, on camera to say that the exact same way. And the person who said it, I gave him some pushback. I'm like, that's cool, you inflate the numbers if some big studio approach you. But when you're trying to crowdfund through fans, that is when I have the biggest problem with it, because you're misleading fans.
I completely understand that, and I do. And I think the devil's in the details 100% of the time. But, like I said, it's something that didn't sit right with me at the time. And so I thought that it could give additional context as you continue to talk to people. And I honestly really feel like, and I don't have this big sort of, breakthrough reveal about Aaron that's going to, put him under. I don't wish ill on the guy. I do think that he has gone a long time being a certain kind of way, discarding people as it suits him. Even throughout the years for myself, I think another thing that sort of distanced us was that I would push back on him a lot. Whenever I say that, he was like an older brother to me, as I got older, I kind of did what all younger brothers do and push back on him. You know what I mean? And so I remember when the Star Wars movies came out, or, the Disney Star Wars, and he was just completely trashing them and trashing people that enjoyed them. I was just pushing back on him where I'm like, look, dude, he'd talk about how commercial filmmaking is not art and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, you're making superpower beatdowns. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And, there's room for commercial art and there's room for fine art, but he would just be constantly sort of putting these people down. And I think Aaron has that certain level of confidence that comes from not being challenged. And I think that when someone like that has someone close to them that challenges them, they either grow from it or they distance themselves from it. And I think that I was just a voice that tried to hold Aaron accountable as a friend, as a brother. Eventually it just led to him not really wanting to hear from me anymore. And I'm not, I'm hurt by that in the sense of like, that guy was, I really looked up to him. He really taught me a lot about filmmaking, but I don't know that guy anymore. I hope that he can better himself. I hope that he can listen to a lot of the things that are coming to light. And that's why personally I'm coming on camera. I don't want to leave this to, an anonymous source. And I really encourage anyone that has anything to say about all this to do so publicly, because to not is not doing service to what this information really means, Oh,
I am with you, man. I'm always trying to encourage some of my anonymous sources that tell me these phenomenal stories to, hey, can I quote you? Can you put it on camera? Can you just say a piece of it? Can I say some of it? Because sometimes they'll say, hey, I don't want you to say none of it. That was just for your ears only, for context purposes. Right. And that's cool and all, but it's just like he will continue to thrive by other people staying silent. I'm so happy you touched on the budget, because that has been my biggest point of contention with this guy. If you want to inflate the numbers for some big studio, cool, fine. But when you say, hey, I need $50,000 for a superpower beatdown with stretch goes up to $200,000.
Each beatdown has a goal of $50,000, but they have stretch goals that go up to $200,000.
And I know those beatdowns, the most expensive one from what I was told was like $20,000. Then I have a huge issue with you, in my mind, hoodwinking the fans.
Yeah. And the things that I've been hearing from people close to me and sort of the lack of value and empathy that he's shown them is so disappointing. and heartbreaking. And those are the people that I hurt for, and why I feel obligated really to come out and share my own experiences with it, and again, speaking to who Aaron was at the time, also didn't have, frankly, a lot of respect for women.
I interviewed Madeline Ray, who was the original Harley Quinn that was replaced for being too fat and ugly.
Well, I now know that I was ugly instead of fat, or both fat and ugly.
That's horrible. She is far from fat or ugly then and now, but in her interview, she also said Aaron was misogynistic.
And we all know he's a little bit arrogant, and we all know he's a little bit misogynistic.
He would kind of constantly have this argument online about the scientific nature of how women are physically inferior to men, as if it was some sort of, I just don't even understand why it was such a point to be made. And I've heard, again, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I've heard from collaborators that also feel like he has not respected them as, because they are women.
I interviewed the Rachel Nicole. You may know her because she was around. And she 100% said that he told her to her face that she was too fat to be on camera, which is recorded and will be coming out soon. That wasn't the first person I heard it from. I've heard it from 3 other people prior to talking to her. So it was a story that was widely out there, but no one talked about it. And I'm happy she came forward. Were you there for when she was unceremoniously, I guess, for lack of a better word, fired?
No, I was not there for that. I only recently heard how she even came to find out she was replaced as Harley, and it broke my heart.
I wasn't told that I was being recast. I had actually showed up to Sean and Aaron's apartment to do the voiceover for Tatiana. And that's when they showed me the footage that I had to do a voiceover for. And that's the first time I saw someone else's Harley Quinn on stage.
It's unfortunate. And, I know that in our industry, people get recast all the time. But I think that especially when you're working with people you love, that you care about, you need to have a mindfulness and respect for them, even if you do choose to do that, And I think that you can see throughout all of Bat in the Sun that there have been a lot of people to play a lot of different roles. You could argue that he doesn't owe some of these people something, but I promise you he owes some of these people something. I promise you he owes Paul Molnar something.
But the thing really, I was like, all right, moving on, and you got, life goes on. But every time I would connect with him, I would talk to him, he would always tell me the same thing. Paul, you're the only Joker. You're the best Joker. Then I'm like, in my head, first I'm like, oh, thanks, that's great. I'm being very polite and kind, and I'm not being a dick. But in my head, I'm thinking, why the fuck would you not cast me in the next Joker? Or there's so many villains that I could put it around, but I don't know.
He wants to say that Paul wasn't the Joker anymore because to move to New York. That's not true. Paul, the entirety of City of Scars was filmed while Paul was living in New York. Paul would fly out to California on his own dime and stay with Aaron to film all of the scenes for City of Scars.
Wow, I did not know that. That goes to another level of how it does not matter how close you are to Aaron. If it's up to him, he'll discard you like no tomorrow. How did you find out you would no longer be playing the Joker?
I didn't. It was really hurtful, actually, in a sense. I saw something come out in the new Bat in the Sun production, and he was the Joker. I was like, fuck me.
A guy literally was flying from New York to California on his own dime to work for free? Hell no.
Yeah, and that's, Paul believed in Bat in the Sun and everything that we were doing. And I think he really thought that, he and Aaron, Kevin, Damien, all of us were going to be working together, doing stuff, building it bigger and bigger and bigger. And like I said, recastings happen. But to circle back, I know I keep circling back, so I hope I'm not giving you too much of a headache with your editing. But, it doesn't surprise me that Aaron spoke to someone about their weight or their physicality. Like I had said earlier, Aaron really puts physical prowess on a pedestal, or at least he did. You can still see it on his Bat in the Sun Facebook page. He'll argue about how tall or muscular or how much Batman should weigh, these sorts of things, where he puts those things on a pedestal, and he values them, even as far as, someone might value being a kind person, or being generous, or being sincere. He puts it on that level of a characteristic to respect above other things.
Aaron has been arguing body composition since 2006 when he interviewed with Follies, discussing how he wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to play Batman because he was 6'3" and weighed 250 pounds. And let's not forget when Aaron did go viral for all the wrong reasons and the recent Batman film came out. He went on about how Robert Pattinson was too scrawny to play Batman. Unsatisfied with the backlash, he created a poll for his curated echo chamber of an audience on Facebook to validate his horrible take on Pattinson. Then I did a little bit of digging and I saw Aaron discussing Paul Monar's body composition in 2014 when he bragged about how Paul had the perfect physique, standing at 6'4" to play Joker, only for him to be replaced by Aaron. I wonder why.
So,
okay.
Again, this is speaking to who I knew Aaron to be. I don't know the guy now. I truly don't. So.
All right. And that's perfectly fine. But like looking at your IMDb, man, you are an accomplished, I see, director, visualization artist. Are you worried about any potential backlash? Because some people are scared to come forward because they are worried about backlash for their professional careers.
I think that something that I've talked to Paul about too, and some of the other guys, is like, I don't think you have to set out to put anyone down, to bury anyone, to expose them for anything. I think that you really just need to speak truth. I think you need to be honest. I think that people need to hear your stories, and it'll help them come forward with their own. Like I said, just hearing about all of the pain and unfortunate things that have come, and I say that kindly, unfortunate things that have come out of some of these collaborations. I just think that people don't need to worry. Working in this industry, you don't want to work with people that don't want to be, or associated with people that speak truth to power. Was it one of your interviews, or maybe it was Paul, but it's bad actors that don't want to hire people that come forward, because they themselves don't want to be exposed for what they're doing. So if someone's going to look at you speaking truth and doing so honestly, sincerely, without anger, or, you can be angry, but there's always a way to come forward and speak a truth. And I think that anyone that doesn't want to work with someone for speaking truth to power has something to fear from that honesty themselves.
I have several sources, and if they go on the record with their experience with Aaron, it may end his career for good. Out of respect for them and the promise I made, I do not even hint at what they had going on with Aaron, but I hope everyone sees Chase's interview and it gives them the same courage to speak truth to power. I wish all of my anonymous sources had that courage and that mindset you have.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know you speak about the Power Ranger Illuminati a lot. And, I think that Aaron probably has a little bit more of a presence in those communities. This industry, it's a small world. And I imagine the more, specific you get within that small world, it gets to be a very small world. And I just mean that in terms of the circle of people, not necessarily the scale of the projects or, the importance of it, because I think there's so many, so many fans are really hopeful. And I've even heard you, Henry, say you're hopeful that JDF's last film is good, because that would be great for Power Rangers fans. That'd be great for JDF fans and for JDF's family. And I hope it's good as well. And if I can, I want to segue even to speak about that. I know that you've spoken about how Aaron taking a long time to get this thing done, and I think that we can all understand that, when your lead actor dies, that's going to throw a wrench into anyone's release schedule. And I don't know if you've ever had to deal with a family member dying, for instance, but there's this whole aspect of power of attorney and where life rights go to and stuff that they probably needed to sort out. And that was probably a huge deal. I know that it does seem odd that, JDF's on camera saying that they're done filming, only to then see so many reshoots happening. But to your point, we don't know publicly facing, what happened if they lost a hard drive, if they lost, footage, if they lost ADR. All of that stuff is possible. And I also want to say, when you're dealing with lower budgets, it's entirely possible that you could do a whole color correction pass and none of it is usable because suddenly you have to be delivering in something called aces and stuff like that. Whenever you're pitching to these major streamers, they have very strict and stringent things. And again, I'm not even saying any of this has happened. I'm just saying that on a small enough budget, whatever that budget may be, you really do have to kind of play a game of whack-a-mole as these problems arise. From my outsider perspective, it doesn't seem all that odd about how long it's taking to finish, personally. However, I think with how public facing he is about his sentiments about when it will get done, I think that's where the issue is coming into play. I think when he's saying we're going to be done with something XYZ in a month, 2 months, and then it takes a year and a half, 2 years, I think that's where the real issue comes in. And I think films are an act of magic, like you get all these people together of all these different talents. And to your point, Aaron might not be able to fully afford all of the talent that is being put into this project, much like his other projects. And whenever you have people donating their time and their energy and their talent, there's this triangle that we always love to use in the visual effects industry. And it's, what is it? It's good, fast, and cheap. And you have to pick two. You can have something good and fast, but it's not going to be cheap. You can have something good and cheap, but it's not going to be fast. Or you can have something fast and good, but it's not going to be cheap. I don't know if I repeated anything there, but
I
think you get catch my grid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, right? My issue is I do have two insiders who were part of the Legend of the White Dragon film, and they explicitly broke down exactly what the reshoots were for. And it had nothing to do with Jason David Frank or his passing. So that's where when he says, we had to do reshoots and he blames it on Jason's passing, I'm like, that's not what I'm hearing from the people in the movie. So that's where I'm just like, okay, sure, you can say that once, but it's like they were scheduled for a theatrical release. I think like last year, 25 cities, 25, theaters everywhere to push back for 2 years. So how do we go from theatrical release, huge media spectacle, to a 2-year delay in sound correction and sound mixing and color correction? And I even got someone who was like, yeah, they reached out to all the streamers and none of them wanted it. And he's like, it's coming out this year. And I'm like, on what platform? Not Netflix. I 100% can say it's not coming out on Netflix per my insider. And you are accomplished. You know that to get something on these streaming platforms, when they buy it, it's not going to be coming out that same year. It has to go on their schedule, on their time frame. So when he says we're thinking about going through a streamer or theatrical, I'm like, I don't think it's going to be on any streamer is going to purchase it. But I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I want as many people to see it as possible. That's where I'm just like, I roll my eyes when he says that stuff, and I just be like, believe what you want, guys. When it actually comes to fruition, then we'll know who was right and who was wrong. Right.
Yeah. And, I wish them a speedy finish, a successful finish. Again, like if not for Aaron, for everyone that had a hand in making that movie happen, I think they all deserve to see that thing succeed. And I don't know how, the aftermath plays out as far as valuations go, but I think even if just for the fans, it would be really great to see that thing come out and be good. So it's like, now, fingers crossed that all of this is for something.
Did you ever meet Jason David Frank? Did you and him have any interactions?
No, I never got the chance to meet Jason. Like I said, I've only heard incredible things from the people that did know him, how kind he was, how diligent he was with his fans. I remember hearing the news of his passing and just reaching out to all my Bat in the Sun family and just even Aaron, expressing my deepest condolences, because say what you will, even about their history, people fight, friends fight, business partners fight, and some business relationships fight so hard that they don't last, and so the fact that, better or for worse, Jason was still choosing to associate with Aaron, work with Aaron, we are all imperfect people. And I think that losing someone that you're close to is never an easy or graceful thing. So
I would agree. Now, Aaron is going to watch this. Aaron is 100% going to see it, and he's going to try to reach out to you. So maybe we can eliminate, I don't know what will happen, but what is one message that you would like to send to Aaron as he watches this live?
I think for me, the only thing I really want to say to Aaron, and, is just that I hope that he's keeping his mind open, keeping his ears open, and really listening to what some of his old friends have to say and want to express out to the public, out to him, and internalize it, grow from it. I really want that guy to be a good man. And I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying, like, learn from the people you've hurt, learn from your mistakes, and grow from it. Don't let it define you, but don't let it, don't stick your hands in your ears or over your ears and just not listen to it. Like, we are all imperfect. We all make mistakes. We can all be selfish at times. And I think that the best thing that he can do now is look these facts in the face and really try to make amends for it. And I don't mean like monetarily. I don't mean like opportunity. I mean like truly, genuinely express to these people sort of like why or what or how these things came to pass. And, people talk about how George Lucas insulated himself in the prequels to the point where he kind of lost the script, so to speak, on how to make movies and stuff like that. And I think that when you choose to stop surrounding yourself with people that care about you, who are willing to push back on you, you kind of leave yourself open to falling victim to your own inhibitions or your own interests, and it comes at the cost of people that care about you and that have sacrificed and worked hard to get you where you are. So be humble. That's really what it comes down to.
Chase, this has been a phenomenal interview, man. Any last words to maybe like your Bat in the Sun family that you want to say to them? Because you already said if people have a story, they should come forward. What message do you want to send to the Bat in the Sun family as a whole?
I'll say that the biggest sentiment is that no one person made Bat in the Sun special. No one person can ruin what made Bat in the Sun special for all of us. So I think that moving forward, continue to create, continue to be inspired, and continue to try and do something with your talents. Don't let, the history of one group or one person dictate how you continue to lead your creative life. And I have a few other things that I just want to mention too, man. And this is not an affront on you, but I want to make sure that, we, as you continue to explore this, and it's something that's bothered me a bit with some of the other comments that have come forward. But, I don't know Aaron's wife, but I don't think that any sort of comments about the work she does or any of that sort of stuff is appropriate. I think that is just pretty honestly like shameful. Sex work is valid work. OnlyFans is valid. And I think that whenever you start to attack things like that, it's just showing your own character. And I think that, like, as far as I know, and I don't know Vera at all, but as far as I know, it's like her involvement in this is being his wife, so I think we all kind of need to take a breath and take stock of, what we're really trying to speak to here and maybe put some respectful limits on that. I also want to correct. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
To be fair, there are so many things people have sent me and brought me about her, and I refuse to like broadcast them or shed light on them because I want to keep the focus on Aaron, but I have no control over what people put in the comment section. But
no, of course.
I know one person did who actually saw her act, was very vocal about her ability to act. And I just kept it in there because that was what they witnessed, not because I want to attack Vera at all or anything like that.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's something that I had noticed kind of come up a few times, and I just wanted to personally say, like, that's not cool. I also wanted to correct my buddy Paul, because he spoke very highly and I love him for it, but he had a few inaccuracies. I just wanted to sort of set the record straight on that as well. I have never worked directly for Marvel. I've worked with Marvel as a client and worked on several Marvel movies, but I'm not a Marvel employee per se. And then secondly, Apple did not give me an iPhone to make a short film. I made a short film on an iPhone. So those are just two little things that I also wanted to just to correct a little bit. Again, I love Paul. He's such a sweetheart, but he can get excited sometimes.
I appreciate you saying that, because I was talking to him about it. He was like, damn, we gotta correct that because Apple didn't give him that phone. What a phenomenal interview. I love how Chase really zeroed in on the budget inflation that just goes to inflate Aaron's ego while using it as a benchmark to make fans think he needs more money to donate for a better project. I hope this interview gives more people the courage to come forward. As always, if you have been wronged by Aaron Schoenke, please email me at henryresilient@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story.